Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai. Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. So lovely to have you join us this morning for our Shabbat community service. Maybe from the calendar, maybe from the splash screen that you saw at the beginning of the service that said the live stream will begin shortly. Maybe from the screen that you see on the screen right now, the photo of a person blowing the shofar. Or maybe from this melody that we're singing, you'll recognize that something is different. We are now into the month of Elul, which is the month that leads us into the high holy days, the days of awe. And during the month of Elul, we prepare ourselves for the high holy days. We do that by using the melodies and the liturgy that we will be using during the high holy days to get ourselves ready to prepare for this important time. And so you'll notice that we're using different melodies this morning for a number of pieces, and that we're incorporating some new readings and new liturgy that we'll continue with through the month as we prepare ourselves. So I invite you to join with me, sing along, and let's think about this time as a way to get ready for the days of awe, which are quickly approaching. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and happy Elul. As Steve said, I'm Rabbi Emily Hyatt. This is Steve Brodsky, and we're really happy to be praying with you this Shabbat. Like Steve said, we are at the beginning of Elul, which means it's time for us to start working. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Steve's like, I've been working, girl. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are these huge moments in our calendar that that we don't always know what, like especially this year, the transition into those heavy moments, to those intense and powerful moments, doesn't start on Erev Rosh Hashanah when we decide, oh my gosh, it's Rosh Hashanah, we should have dinner and we should do all these things, and then we're going to go to synagogue. The work starts now, a full month before. We start to prepare ourselves. We start to get ready. And so like Steve said, we're going to do that both through reintroducing our high holiday tunes so that we can remember them and get comfortable with them, so that we don't end up sitting in Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur services and saying, oh yeah, I remember this one, although inevitably that happens a little bit. But also so that we can prepare our inner selves, so that we can get ready for the work of repentance, so that we can get ready for the work of giving and asking for forgiveness, so that we can get ready for that work of self-examination. That takes a while. As adults, we know that. It's a difference from when we're kids and we think about it for one day. And as adults, we know that that's a process. And so we begin that process today. And we always start by taking an inventory. No matter what time of year it is, we just take stock. What do we have to be grateful for? What do we have to think about today? And so we begin with a moment of mindfulness. And I invite you to join me in this reading. In this moment, mindful of our many blessings, may we form an intent to carry gratitude with us continually. May we leave fear and jealousy by the wayside, making room in our hearts for contentment, satisfaction, and compassion. Join with me. May we start each day counting our blessings, the blessing of being alive, the many miracles of the living world we are one with, the ability we possess to love and to be loved, the many gifts and talents we have been graced with, the support we receive, and the support we are able to extend. May our gratitude lead to action. May we express our gratitude. May we smile when we encounter each other on the path from 6 feet away. May we seek opportunities to share our talents with others. May we express our love to one another. May we give with no expectation of receiving. May we seek to repair what is broken. May we end each day counting the day's blessings, those we have received and those we have bestowed. May we be a blessing.
Ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, va'ani berok chazdecha, avo v'techa, eshtachav el heichal kodshecha, ve'yiratecha, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, Adonai ahavti, me'on beitecha, u'mekom mishkan kevodecha, mishkan kevodecha, va'ani eshtachavem ve'echra, evrecha lifnei Adonai, osi, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, va'ani tefilati lecha, Adonai et ratzon, Elohim berov chazdecha, Elohim berov chazdecha, aneni be'emet ishecha, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, mishkenotecha Yisrael.
My God, I thank you for my life, body, and soul. Help me to realize that I am someone new, someone who never existed before, someone original and unique in the world. May I be fully present to this awesome day. May my body and my soul be ready to do your work, unifying and strengthening one another, linked and renewed daily by your breath. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei chol basar umafli la'asot. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously.
And so we've recognized our physicality, our bodies, that we awake in the morning and everything is working. Our bodies are miraculous. We also give thanks for our spiritual selves, for the soul that God has restored to us, all fresh and clean this morning as we awaken. We sing Elohai Nishama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. God, the soul that you have given me is a pure one. Elohai, Elohai, Nishama, Nishama, Shenatata Bi, Shenatata Bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi, Elohai, 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 Nishama, Nishama, Shenatata Bi, Shenatata Bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen. Elohai, Elohai, Nishama, Nishama, Shenatata Bi, Shenatata Bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids. Elohai, Elohai, Nishama, Nishama, Shenatata Bi, Shenatata Bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. At this point, we'll give everyone a moment to share their own personal blessing. You know, these nisim b'chol yom, these everyday miracles, these blessings are a moment for us to stop and recognize that something amazing, something important, something wonderful and incredible and miraculous is happening around us at every moment. And so maybe there's something that you experienced this past week that was a miracle, was a blessing. So take a moment, hold that in your thoughts, in your heart, say it out loud if you'd like, type it into the chat box if you'd like, and we'll give everyone a moment to acknowledge their own personal blessings. We take one more big, deep breath. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai.
Who's doing it?
One of us should probably read this, Rabbi. You want to read
I'm
it?
I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to
Okay.
do it. Okay. So we have said thank you for our bodies and thank you for our souls. And we arrive now at a moment of gratitude for our minds, for our abilities to learn and to engage with these words of Torah. And so we'll begin by reading together our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah.
Thank you, Rabbi. Nicely done. So we come now to our moment of study. We have been working our way for many, many months through this wonderful book, Every Day, Holy Day, 365 days of teachings and practices from the Jewish tradition of Musar. Musar is focus or intensity or practice, spiritual practice. And we are talking for now the fifth week about the value of compassion. So we'll read this together and then we'll dig into it a little bit. Whoever has compassion on people, they will have mercy on him in heaven. This comes from Talmud. This means that showing compassion for a fellow human being arouses the reservoirs of heavenly mercy, which catalyzes God to sit on the throne of compassion rather than on the throne of strict justice. Rabbi Eliyahu Schlesinger, born in 1949. So, interesting. And you know, during this month of Elul, as we begin to turn and return, but to focus our thoughts on our behavior from the past year and what kind of changes we want to make and what kind of forgiveness we need to be asking for and what kind of forgiveness we need to be granting, this teaching seems particularly relevant. This image of God sitting either on the throne of compassion or on the throne of strict justice and judging us. And that's really a major, major theme of the High Holy Day period that we have now entered, is this idea of, who shall live and who shall die, and who shall be blessed and who shall be cursed. And we spend a lot of time in the big scary part of our Yom Kippur liturgy, especially thinking about these things. And they're heavy and they're dark, but they're powerful and they're meaningful and they're motivating. And that's what this month of Elul is designed to do, is to bring us slowly into this mind space, or this frame of mind where we're thinking about these kinds of things. And so this teaching is telling us that compassion is a doorway, right? The compassion is a doorway to positive judgment. That if we show compassion for our fellow human beings, that God looks kindly on that, and that when ultimately we all stand before God on the day of judgment, that God will in turn show us compassion. And I imagine that Rabbi Hyatt a little bit later is going to talk about in our Torah portion today how we get the phrase, justice, justice shall you pursue, tzedek, tzedek tirdof. And the word tzedek is a complicated word. It means justice, it means righteousness. It also involves so many elements of these values that we have been discussing in Musar. Compassion is wrapped up in righteousness. To be a just person, to behave justly, to act righteously in the world means to have compassion. And, it all works together. You can't be just if you're not compassionate. You can't, so all of these values sort of come together. And during this time of the year when we're really tuned into these ideas, I think this is particularly powerful to think about ways that we can be compassionate to others. Every one of us is going through things that we can't imagine what other people's lives are like. We know our own situation. We know the struggles that we face. We know the strange world that we're all living in. We can't really imagine what other people are going through, and we never know the whole story. So the only way, as Rabbi Schlesinger is teaching us, the only way to approach others is with compassion, to show compassion for our fellow human beings and try to understand what they are going through. So let's look at our phrase and our practice for this teaching. Dan, if we can go to the next slide. Yes, there we go. Our phrase is, care for the other, we are one. And the practice for this week is to identify a person or people with whom there is a heaviness in your relationship. Then act toward them in a way that reaches beyond what is required in order to relieve them of their burden. And as we, again, enter this month of Elul, this is a good practice to carry with us as we move into this very special period. We'll continue with our blessing. Read with me, please. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Baruch atah Adonai, hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. We'll continue with the singing of Psalm 150. Hallelujah. שמחו, הללו במינים ועוגב. הללויה, 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 הללויה. בצלצלי שמה, הללו בצלצלי תרועה, כל הנשמה תהלליה, כל הנשמה תהלליה. We're ready for the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. I invite you to rise either physically or spiritually as you are able. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Praised are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy you illumine the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai! In wisdom you formed them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai our God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. This part of the service, when we get to the Baruch Hu and the Shema, we prepare ourselves not to be grateful for the little things that God does for us, for our eyes that open, for our backs that straighten, but really these giant, overarching, global understandings that we have of how the world works. And however we see God as energy in the world or power or as a physical God, we have this journey from preparing ourselves, calling ourselves to the prayer in the Baruch Hu, to understanding the magnitude of the universe, and then thinking, wow, how amazing is it that God, however we understand God, loves us in that magic, in the rising of the sun and the enormous power of the world, that we get to be a part of it. And so we read this reading about Ahava Rabbah, that enormous love that we and God have for each other, and the magic that we feel being a part of this universe. Love abundant, love unstinting. Our God, you have enfolded us in love. Tender compassion beyond all bounds, your precious gift. Our fathers and mothers gave you their trust, and you gave them Torah, laws by which to live. For their sake, teach us as well. Grace us with your guidance. Loving Father, merciful Mother of us all, grant us clear understanding that we may listen, learn, and teach, preserve, practice, and fulfill with love every lesson of your Torah. May learning your Torah light up our eyes. May our hearts embrace your mitzvot. Unite us in love and reverence for you, that we may never feel ashamed for our deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Our praise to you, Adonai. You have singled out your people, Israel, with love.
Collect into one your memories. Collect into one your hopes and your dreams. Collect into one your destiny. Collect into one all that life brings. Ve'avienu l'shalom, l'shalom, l'shalom. Ve'avienu l'shalom. Me'arba kanfot haaretz. These are the fringes that bind us together, pulling us closer together in peace. These are the fringes bringing us closer. These are the fringes, precious and sweet. Ve'avienu l'shalom. Shalom, l'shalom, ve'avienu l'shalom, me'arba kanfot haaretz. The promise of our past, the prayers of today, the dreams of tomorrow, you show us the way. True and enduring, awesome, revered. These are the fringes drawing us near. Ve'avienu l'shalom, l'shalom, l'shalom. Ve'avienu l'shalom, me'arba kanfot haaretz. Ve'avienu l'shalom. Shalom, l'shalom, ve'avienu l'shalom, me'arba kanfot haaretz. Shema, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu Adonai Echad Adonai Shema, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad Baruch Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Leolam Shema, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Adonai Echad Adonai Echad Adonai Echad. Please join with me in chanting Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadavarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beineinecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
And now that we have walked our way through from the Baruch Hu to the Shema and understood not only our love and God's love as they are exchanged, but also the commitments that we've made. That's what the Ve'ahavta is, that we promise to write these words and keep them where we will remember them, the words about understanding and believing in our own history and our relationship with God. We remember the biggest miracle of all, which is that of the Exodus of Egypt. And so we read, God did not lead us by the nearer way when Pharaoh let the people go at last, but roundabout by way of the wilderness. Pillars of fire and cloud marking day and night, to the edge of the flood tide, uncrossable and vast. Read with me. If God had led us by the nearer way, we cried, we wouldn't die here. Let Egypt oppress us as it will. Let us return to the past. But we have come out by way of the wilderness, in fear, on faith, free now, because we say we are free, no longer the unchosen, the outcast. God did not lead us by the nearer way, but into rising waters which do not part unless, with an outstretched arm, we step forward and stand fast. Roundabout, by way of the wilderness, we have come, blessed with love, to bless our God, who did not lead us by the nearer way, but roundabout, by way of the wilderness.
Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, Nora tehilot osef eleh, shira chadasha shibechu geulim l'shimcha al sfat hayam. Yachad kulam hodu v'himlichu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Yai lai 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 lai.
Zor Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael. Rock of Israel, arise and come to the help of your people Israel. Keep your word by redeeming Judah and Israel. The eternal and infinite one is our Redeemer, our source of holiness. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Blessed are you in our lives, eternal one, who redeemed Israel. We prepare ourselves for the Amidah, for our tefillah. In the depths of night, by the edge of the river, Jacob was left alone. In heartfelt longing in the temple of God, Hannah uttered her prayer alone. In the barren wilderness, in doubt and despair, Elijah found God alone. On the holiest day in the Holy of Holies, the high priest entered alone. We are bound to one another in myriad ways, but each soul needs time to itself. In solitude, we meet the solitary one. Silence makes space for the still small voice. For the psalmist says, deep calls unto deep. From the depths of our soul, we seek what is most profound.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Open up my lips and let my mouth declare your praises. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor veHanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot ve'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Zochreinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotvenu v'sefer ha'chaim, lemancha Elohim Chaim. Zochreinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotvenu v'sefer ha'chaim, lemancha Elohim Chaim. Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah.
Your life-giving power is forever, Adonai, with us in life and in death. You liberate and save, you cause dew to descend, and with mercy abundant, lovingly nurture all life. From life to death, you are the force that flows without end. You are faithful, even to those who rest in the dust. Power beyond power, from whom salvation springs, sovereign over life and death. Who is like you? Merciful God, who compares with you? With tender compassion, you remember all creatures for life. Faithful and true, worthy of our trust, you sustain our immortal yearnings. In you we place our undying hopes. Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol, wellspring of blessing, power eternal. You are the one who gives and renews all life.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות. Adirenu Adonai, Adonenu Ma'adir, Shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch kevod Adonai, Mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu, Yashmienu berachamav le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, imloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion ledor vador. Ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid godlecha. Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid godlecha. Ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nagdish, kedushatcha nagdish. V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, le'olam le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
We take a moment now for silent prayer.
Create a pure heart within me, and let my soul wake up in your light. Open me to your presence, flood me with your Holy Spirit, and I will stand and sing out the power of your forgiveness. And I will teach your love to the lonely, and the lost will find their way home. And I will stand and sing out the power of your forgiveness. And I will teach your love to the lonely, lost will find their way home. Yehiyu leratzonim refi vehagyon libi lefanecha Adonai Tzuri v'goali Adonai Tzuri v'goali.
We arrive now at our Torah reading. You have to excuse me. I have a little bit of a cold. We arrive now at our Torah reading, which we're going to look at today through the framework of this month of Elul. So before we start, I want to tell you my favorite Elul story, which involves this town. I should tell you, many years ago, before there were like modern conveniences, and houses were built of wood and small towns existed, you can imagine, and there was no electricity. And so every time like a kerosene lamp or a candle was lit, there was great risk of fire. And so these tiny towns where the houses were closed together for safety and the towns were, all built of wood, a fire was a terrible thing. And so there were systems in towns. A fire would break out and everyone would go to help. There was no fire department. And so imagine there's a watchtower that's taller than all of the other buildings that keep a lookout. And then as soon as the watchman would see a flame or a smoke, he would sound the alarm. And the townspeople would all leave whatever they were doing. They would wake up, they would leave their homes, they would leave their businesses, and they would form a chain between wherever the water source was, the nearest well, and the fire, and they would pass each other pails of water and they would put the fire out. So that's how these things worked. Now, one day it happened that there was a young man from a small village who came to one of these towns from his own town for the very first time. And he stopped at an inn on the outskirts of the town. And he was talking to the innkeeper. And suddenly he heard the sound of a bugle. And it surprised him. And so he ran outside as the innkeeper ran outside. And he asked the innkeeper what it meant. And the innkeeper said, whenever we have a fire, we sound the bugle. And the fire is put out, the innkeeper said as he ran down the street. How wonderful, thought this young man. What an amazing system. I will bring this back to my village. And so this young man went back to his village, and on his way, he bought himself a bugle because this was really an important piece of the system. And when he returned to his village, he was full of excitement. He called all of these villagers together and he said, listen, you good people, I have solved our problem. There is no reason to be afraid of these fires anymore. Just watch me and see how quickly I can put out this fire. And so with the village people gathered around, he ran to the nearest hut and he set the house on fire. And the fire obviously began to spread quickly and the people lost their minds. And they began to yell and he said, don't be alarmed. I have a solution. Watch me. And so the lad drew out this incredible bugle that he had bought and he began to blow the bugle with all his might, stopping only to catch his breath and to say, wait, don't panic. This will put out the fire. But the fire didn't really seem to care about the music of the bugle and merely hopped from one village house to the next until the entire town was on fire. And the villagers began to cry and to scream and they said, you idiot! How did you do this? Why would you do this? And the young man said, I went to this town and I saw that when you blew the bugle, the fire got put out. And the villagers looked at him and they said, "Don't you understand? The bugle is only the alarm. It's only the notification. It's a sign to wake up if you're asleep. It's a sign to leave what you're doing if you're busy. It's a sign to run to the fire, to get the water and put out the fire. The bugle itself means nothing." So in Elul, one of the customs that we have is that every day that's not Shabbat, we blow the shofar. And as we blow the shofar, we prepare ourselves for the high holy days, that they are coming. It's a sound that, much like that bugle, alerts us to what is next, what's approaching, what's coming. But it's exactly like the fire alarm. The sound of the shofar itself is not enough for us. If all we do is hear the shofar, is hear these new tunes that prepare us for the high holy days, if all we do is remind ourselves that it's Elul, all we've done is sound an alarm over and over again. We haven't done any of the actual work. And so as we shift for a second to our Torah portion for this week, Shoftim, those of you that learned with Rabbi Black a little while ago, looked at the verse Deuteronomy 16:18. And in this parsha, we get all kinds of information about judges and justice and righteousness, and how in our cities and in our towns we set up systems that preserve and fight for real justice. And so this verse in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 18, it says that we are supposed to put Shoftim and Shotrim b'chol she'arecha, in all of our gates. Now, Rabbi Black just spent a lot of time talking about what those gates might be. But I want to talk about the first part of that verse for a second, Shoftim and Shotrim, which translates, Shoftim is the name of the parsha, a shofet is a judge, and Shotrim is an officer. It's an officer. And the fact that we're supposed to set up Shoftim and Shotrim in all of our gates is a really interesting instruction. Because some of the commentators take those two words and decide that Shoftim, the judges are not supposed to be doers. They're supposed to be knowers. The judges are the scholars. They're the ones that understand the letter of the law and beyond, and can apply that law in any circumstance to figure out what is fair. Shotrim are the officers. They're the executors of our law, and they're the doers. And so at every gate, we are supposed to put up scholars and doers, which is a fascinating thing to think about, especially if you think about what Rabbi Black just taught us, the idea that we are supposed to have at all our gates these judges. Why gates? Why not in all our cities? Why not in all our towns? Why not just for all our tribes? Why do we have to put them at the gates? And as all of you in Torah study so eloquently determined, gates means more than just the entrance to the city. Gates represent going in and going out. Gates represent the border of what is and what isn't. Gates represent our body, especially in this time of Elul. And so our judges and our officers are instructed to apply the law, to be the doers, and to make sure that at every gate we have both the knowledge and the capacity to create and enforce a world of righteousness. And so here we are in Elul. The shofar is blowing. The bugle is sounding. The high holy days are approaching. And we're supposed to get ready. And here we are in our homes. The world is so much different than we anticipate that it would be at this time. How do we even hear the shofar in a world like this if we don't have one to blow and sound ourselves? So one more piece of information that we're given in the Talmud about our judges and our officers. They are supposed to operate lifnim mishurat hadin, beyond the letter of the law. So it's not just in situations that they already understand or that they already know or that they're already familiar with that they are supposed to judge and execute, right? They are supposed to operate beyond the letter of the law. Now, in some situations, what that means is taking each situation on its own merit and really understanding what's happening when they're judging. But certainly in this situation, the idea that this alarm is sounding, and we're being given the instruction right now to find and create and manifest righteousness, to assess ourselves, to do the hard work of Rosh Hashanah beyond the scope of what's familiar. Lifnim mishurat hadin, beyond just what we already know, beyond what's obvious, beyond the big black lines that are drawn around what is and is not acceptable in a world that we thought we knew. We're supposed to apply this to unprecedented situations. And so this serves as my invitation to you all as we enter into Elul to hear the call of the shofar, to hear the call of the high holiday tunes, to hear the call of this approach into these days of awe which are coming, and to know that this is a year, lifnim mishurat hadin, that will call us to operate beyond the boundaries that we already knew. Let that call, let that alarm sink in. And unlike the boy who thinks that the alarm is enough, but also unlike the villagers who have a system that they never stray from, let us allow this alarm, this shofar, this bugle, this call to invite us to be even more doers, even more creative than we have been before. This is an unprecedented situation, and yet Elul still calls to us to do that self-examination, to look inside ourselves, to figure out how we can be better and different. We've heard a lot in these last 6 months about self-care. Yes, and it's not just about allowing yourself to be exactly who you need to be at that moment, but about allowing yourself to grow in ways that you never thought possible. And Rosh Hashanah, Elul, Yom Kippur are going to be the perfect opportunities for us to do that. And so we hear that alarm and we prepare ourselves to investigate what does that alarm mean for us this year. Shabbat Shalom. And we arrive at our Torah reading now. We have many, as usual, people who are going to join us for our Torah honors in honor of our bat mitzvah. Melissa Acker is becoming bat mitzvah this afternoon, and so Jamie, Andy, Melissa, and Ryan Acker are going to do the blessing before the Torah for us this morning. And then we are going to hear the Torah reading from one of our most amazing, we have, I don't even know if you guys know this, we have this cadre of tutors, Torah teachers who work with our bar and bat mitzvah students as they are preparing for their b'nai mitzvah. Lisa Velik is one such tutor. She is incredible, and our students are so grateful to have an opportunity to learn from all our tutors, but definitely from Lisa. So thank you for not only being willing to teach our students, but to do what you teach them as well. It's so powerful for them to see you read from the Torah. For our Torah translation, we have Farah Stern, one of our amazing Board of Trustees members. And for our post-Torah blessing, we are going to hear the blessing from Kim and Charles Malik in honor of Henry and Jacob, their boys, becoming b'nai mitzvah this evening. This is another 4-day b'nai mitzvah, 4 b'nai mitzvah day. So we're in the middle of the second right now on the lawn of Temple. And we've got 2 more after this. So with that, I turn it over to the Ackers to take us into our Torah reading.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaBarach, Baruch Adonai HaBarach Elam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim, V'natan Lanu et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Shoftim v'shotrim, titen lecha b'chol she'arecha, asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha lishpatecha, v'shavtu et ha'am mishpat tzedek. Lo tateh mishpat, lo takir panim, v'lo tika shohad, ki ha-shohad ya'aver enei chachamim, v'salef divrei tzadikim. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof, leman tihiyah, ve'yarashta et haaretz, asher Adonai Elohecha noten la. Lo tita lecha, asherah kol eitz, eitzel mizbach, Adonai Elohecha asher ta'aseh la. Velo takim lecha matzeva, asher sonei Adonai Elohecha.
You shall appoint magistrates and officials for your tribes in all the settlements that the Eternal your God is giving you, and they shall govern the people with due justice. You shall not judge unfairly. You shall show no partiality. You shall not take bribes, for bribes blind the eyes of the discerning and upset the plea of the just. Justice, justice shall you pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land that the Eternal your God is giving you. You shall not set up a sacred post, any kind of pole beside the altar of the Eternal your God, that you may make or erect a stone pillar, for such the Eternal your God detests.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Thank you to all of our Torah service participants this morning for your beautiful participation. It's always so nice to have everybody with us. And mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov to our bar and bat mitzvah students that are becoming b'nei mitzvah this weekend. We're so proud of you. And with that, we move right into our Mishaberach, our prayer for healing. As always, we will read a list in between the verses of this beautiful blessing, asking for healing for all of those that we know that might be in need of healing. And we will ask you at that point, please, to type in anybody that you're thinking of as well, so that we can all pray together. Remember, it makes no difference whether or not I say a name or you type a name. And with that, we join together in the words of the Mishaberach.
Source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
Today we are praying for Zachary Hoffman, David Karner, David Lustig, Marcia Richter, Paul Kamensky, Dr. Catherine Carey McCallie, Natalie Mosier, Corey Franklin, Margaret Blubach, Bob Connolly, Lori Markman, Jeff Cohn, David Goldenberg, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Stuart Myers, Zell Friednash, Sonny Talpers, Jerry Butter, Shanti Hazan, Robert Tucker, Jennifer Brynan, Lynn Pollitt, Sarah Lynn McIntyre, Lynn McLaughlin Cromar, Cynthia Friedland, Dana Huss, Harold Gluscoder, Betsy Appel, Louis Karsh, Robin Huss, Joe Kaufman, Mandel Winter, Arlene Galchinsky, and Nancy Schwader. If there are any others that you are thinking about this week that you would like to add to our list, type them in, say them out loud, say them in your heart. And we pray, of course, for all of those that have suffered and are still healing in the last 6 months from the state of our world in so many different ways, as we join together in the next words of our Misha Berach, Baruch Ata Adonai Makor HaRefuah, blessed are you, source of all healing.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say we move toward the conclusion of our service. I invite you to rise as you are able, either physically or spiritually, and we join together in Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'teit gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu כמשפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך
Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. And we are thinking of those who we have lost in this last week: Kaya Gwendolyn Dunham, Barbara M. Glazer, Harriet Saper, Susan Elaine Weil, Dr. Asher Levine, Dr. Corey DeWitt, and Lady Elaine Wolfenson. We add those names To those that we have lost in the last 30 days, Albert Cordova, Sally Gass, Marion Goldman, Alan Levin, Rabbi Adine Steinsaltz, and Robert Weber. And of course, we add those to the list of those who are on our Kaddish list, for whom we are remembering their loss at this season in years past. They are having a yortzeit this Shabbat. Abraham Bender, Harry O. Barenbaum, Evelyn Betts, Babette Block, Hazel Oberfelder Blumenthal, Joe E. Brown, Rose A. Brown, Ree H. Castle, Leon Walnow Cohen, Harold V. Cook, Lenore G. Cook, Evelyn G. Davis, Edith Davidson, Robert Deutsch, Ben Disman, Reuben Dicker, Betty Finkelstein, Louis E. Fisk, Phil I. Francis, Gust Frosch, Jane Spiegelman Gidwitz, Florence W. Green, Bertha S. Goldman, Babette B. Hart, Fanny Hindelman, Royal Judd, J. Kornfeld, Helene Kurtz, Pauline Landsman, Goldie Lasky, Danielle L. Lehrberger, J. Leonard Levy, Beverly Morrison Lopatin, Herman Loop, Max Lowenstein, Joseph Lustig, Mose Meyer, Gert and Wilhelm Moak, Dr. Albert Oxman, Helen Golder Plotka, Betty B. Prince, Etta Rakowski, Samuel M. Rinskoff, Donna S. Sapkin, Leonard Sampson, Isidore Samuels, Rose Schaefer, Morris Schenkine, Elizabeth D. Schwartz, Edward Sheftel, Morris Shore, John Anders Sigmund, Morris Solomon, Harry E. Schubart, Douglas Paul Schwader, Isidore Samuels, Gertrude Weissman Weatherhorn, Ruth Zeppelin. And we add, as usual, 10 of Colleen's 420 precious souls who were taken from us during World War II and the Holocaust: David Mendel, Sarah Tauba Moravkova, Herman Moravec, Zdenka Nugroshlova, Dr. Carol Ornstein, Eva Ornsteinova, Hermina Ornsteinova, Rita Ornsteinova, Adi Pakovska, and Jan Pakovsky. We add to those names any others that you are thinking of today, people who you are remembering. We add them to our list of memory as usual. Please feel free to type them into the Facebook comments box as we join together in ancient words of grieving and mourning as we say the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkarash shemei Rabba, ve'alma divrach lirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'le'almei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru
All right, a couple announcements as we close out our Shabbat morning service. As we mentioned, there are 2 more B'nai Mitzvah happening today. So a mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov this morning to Sophia Edwards and Max Firestein, who should be finishing his bar mitzvah celebration right about now. At 3 o'clock, we will celebrate together with Melissa Acker as she becomes bat mitzvah. And at 5:30, we celebrate with Henry and Jacob Malik. So it's, as usual, a big day of exciting celebration full of mazel tovs. At 7 p.m. tonight, we have Havdalah. As usual, Shabbat does end, as tragic as that may be. And we are going to be joining the Schwader and Youth Engagement team, Jody and Zahava, and I think Dennis is going to be there. It's going to be great for Havdalah on the main Facebook page. And it will also be on the Schwader Camp page. And as you guys know, we're staying virtual for almost everything that we're doing. I had a couple of questions after last Shabbat, so just in case you are wondering and watching, we're doing a couple of our B'nai Mitzvah outside. We've given families the option to have a very limited service with a very limited number of people and limited clergy. So some of our families have opted into that. We are not opening up our regular services for in-person worship. We just don't know how to do that safely yet. We can't find a way. So we are going to continue to have our regular Shabbat evening and Saturday morning services will be virtual. As you know, the high holidays will be virtual. So thanks for asking. It's a good question. When we can control it, sometimes it's possible when we can really minimize the number of people we have together. And otherwise, stay tuned. There's a lot of stuff that's going to come out for Elul. So we are excited to be gearing up for the high holidays. Steve is excited to not sleep for the next month because that's how he does.
It's been weeks already.
It's almost like you're having like an ascetic preparation, for the high. You don't sleep, you eat when you remember. You're really like full body preparing for the high holidays.
Yes, and despite all that, the holidays always come too quickly, and I feel completely unprepared when they get here. Good. So. It's just how it goes.
As long as you know what to expect. All right. And so with that, Steve, what are we going to sing?
We're going to end this morning with a melody that we will use often during these few next coming weeks. As I mentioned before, this month of Elul, this High Holy Day period, is about the process of turning and returning. And that's what this song is about, returning to God with love, with hope. And it's very simple. You'll figure out how it goes. We return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, return again and again to love. We return, we return, we return, return again. We return, we return, we return, return again and again to you. We return again to you.
Yehiratzon milfanecha. We stand before you, God, asking for a month full of alarms, of reminders, of shofar blasts and bugle sounds and things that remind us that we are still living in the world that we remember, even though it looks a little bit different. And we ask for those reminders that will bring us closer to this season that gives us so much every year, and that we will bring us closer to the selves that we want to be. And so we say, Tatzilenu l'shalom v'tadrichenu l'shalom. Let our footsteps and our paths lead us only in peace. And we wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.